Good day, ma'am. We are Group 7 and we will discuss the problem and causal analysis of Little Cup Corporation case study. For the presenters, I am Lance Albert de Leon, together with my groupmate Abigail Malang. So first, for the background of the problem, Little Cup Corporation is a startup company that was established in 2010, and they started out by moving to different lines of business like providing water refilling service and distributing pasteurized eggs, but focused on paper packaging products later on. They distribute paper cups, paper meal, paper boxes, paper straws, paper bags, paper plates, and other products that can be made out of paper. The company has several custom-made designs to give their customers a chance to improve their branding strategy on their paper cups and paper mailboxes, which have their logos imprinted. Little Cup Corporation is not capable of manufacturing their own products since they do not have a machine to do so. Hence, they source their products abroad, uh, more specifically China, due to its good quality with a more affordable price than the locally produced products. They supply 65 different varieties of their products, yet they were not able to satisfy all the demands of their customers for the past months because of some reasons. One is their pricing. Since they source their products from overseas, they do this request for quotation or RFQ for them to choose the best supplier that can supply the most affordable products with a good quality. This causes a pricing gap between Little Cup and the ones that produce and trade their products, and difficulty of finding a supplier since they are expensive. Another reason for Little Cup that makes them unable to supply the total demand is the duration of the overall process. In the current system, customers will order to Little Cup via call, and the sales agent will prepare the order upon order confirmation. Next, the inventory and logistics department will receive the order, and their secretary will record the details in their MS Excel database. And then there will be at least a 2-day lead time for the products to arrive in Little Cup. The current system takes about 3 working days or 3-day lead time before the company can deliver their product to their customer. The table in the next slide shows the number of demands and the supply demand. To compute the unmet demand, the supply demand of each product was subtracted to the actual demand. So here's the breakdown. So for the total actual demand, there are 3,228,500 demands, and the supply demands are only 2,432,400, which makes it the 796,101. 796,100 are the unmet demand. Next, the problem analysis. So in this case study, it was analyzed using Kepner-Turego approach, or the is and is not analysis. There were four dimensions that were utilized, and these are the what, when, where, and extent. What was used, what was used to identify the object or group of objects of the deviations being explained. For the where, it was used to identify the location of the deviation. When is to determine the time, month, year, or frequency of the deviation. And lastly, extent was used to determine the magnitude. So for the what is dimensional analysis? The deviation of the company was their inability to supply the 796,100 unmet demand to their customers. This was caused by the 3 working days lead time before the company can deliver their product to their customer, and their expensive pricing compared to other brands due to their inability to produce their own product, which causes them to source from other countries like China. All of these deviations might be recorded on other recording tools, but is not, since it was recorded using MS Excel database of all the transactions done and the year sales summary table, which is shown in the previous slide. But even the company's recording were inaccurate because of the miscounting of products. For the where is dimension analysis, the location of the deviation was identified in Little Company's inventory and logistics department. It is where the logistics secretary records all the details of the purchase orders in their MS Excel database after the ordering process that were received and prepared by the sales agent upon order confirmation of the customer. As said in the previous paragraph, the inaccurate count of the products and the inaccurate forecasting of the company happened in the logistics secretary's office. So it is where the tool when the deviation is observed. This can also be observed in other offices of or departments of Little Cup, but is not. Next, for the when, the deviation happened for 7 months, sorry, starting from March 2018 until October 2018, as shown in there. Um, Sales or yeah. The start of not meeting the demand of customers may have started before March or until after October, but is not, since it is recorded in the table. The deviation happens when additional orders come into the system because Little Cup cannot deliver the orders immediately due to the 3-day lead time of delivering items, thus resulting in piling up of orders. Also, there may be a pattern of deviation, but there are none. And lastly, for the extent, it is shown in the Table 1, Summary of Unmet Demand per Product, the number of items that were not delivered from March 2018 to October 2018. By subtracting the supply demand per product and to the actual demand, the results show that the total unmet demand for the 7-month period is 796,100. The count of items might be more or less than the supply demand, but is not. This causes Little Cup Corporation an opportunity loss since they depend on their suppliers as they cannot manufacture their own product. Next, after reading the case study, we're able to create a problem statement and the objectives. For the problem statement, the inventory and logistic department of Little Cup Corporation is unable to supply the 796,100 unmet demand for 7 months from the month of March 2018 until October 2018, which causes the company an opportunity loss. So here in the starting from inventory and logistic department of inventory of logistics department, it is the where analysis. For the unable to supply the 796,100 unmet demand for it is the what analysis. The duration or the when is for 7 months from March to October, and the extent is the opportunity loss of the company. We also identified the objectives of this case study, which is first, identify the root cause of the problem. Next, analyze the possible solutions to solve the problem. Next is determine if there is or are alternative solutions. And lastly, give feasible recommendations to eliminate the cause of the deviation.
In problem analysis, we clearly define the problem. Now, the root cause of why these problems could happen could be studied through causal analysis. Causal analysis is a methodology wherein the cause or causal factors are identified in order to make a cohesive conclusion wherein the solution of the problem would come from. In this problem, the Little Cup Corporation, the tools that we will be using is stream diagnostic chart, YY diagram, cause and effect diagram, and systems flowchart. To start off, let us identify the issues of Little Cup Corporation. As mentioned, we would be identifying the issues of Little Cup Corporation. First is product delivery takes 3 days. The reason for this is they have suppliers from abroad only. Next is ideal ordering process procedure is not followed wherein the sales agent and logistics secretary is doing each other's work. Third is high price of products compared to their competitors. The reason behind this is they have suppliers from abroad only, leading to additional costs for shipping and others. Next is insufficient number of suppliers. It is not clear, but from what we understood, they have Chinese suppliers only. So their suppliers from China could not be sufficient enough for their current demand. Next is a 3-day additional order process from their Chinese suppliers. This means if the customers suddenly have additional orders or extra demand, it will take time as this is the lead time that the Chinese suppliers needs. Next is uses ceiling forecasting method. This means that they are using estimates from what was sold from the previous production. So it is not accurate as there is no estimates or there is no assumptions that should be considered for future production and orders. Next is no formal forecasting method. This is why they use ceiling forecasting method as it is not really considered as a forecasting method because you are just using what data is available to you. So it is not a formal forecasting method from what we know. Next is unorganized records. It has been mentioned that their format in Excel is simple and could be interchanged easily. Next is standard 3-day lead time of suppliers for additional orders and delivery as mentioned, wherein product delivery takes 3 days, the actual demand and additional orders or additional demands takes another 3 days. So it is a standard of suppliers. Next is, as mentioned, that the ideal ordering process is not followed. So logistics secretary and the sales agent is doing unassigned work. This means that human errors could ensue due to how logistics secretary is not so familiar with the sales agent work and sales agent would cause really problems for the logistics secretary as the logistics secretary is the person in middle of scenes such as taking she's the one ordering, she's the one processing it in their database. Next is they have no production planner. This means that they have no employee knowledgeable in forecasting, leading to inaccurate demand forecasts also. Next is they cannot deliver customer demand as seen in the tables present. And as mentioned, additional demand cannot be delivered. And lastly, they cannot produce their own product as they only outsource the production of their product and don't have machines for their own production. The tool that we will be using to identify the root cause of Little Cup Corporation's problems is the stream diagnostic chart. The stream diagnostic chart could be explained in the simple question of how are the issues or causes related from one another. Previously, I have listed the issues of little corporation, then after listing, it would be divided into the groups of organizing arrangement, social factors, technology, and physical setting. These are done so that we could identify the relationships properly. Organizing arrangement is a factor that coordinates the functioning parts of any organization that relates to their people. Next is social factors. It is the factors that are related to the people of the organization directly. Next is technology, any factor that turns input into output. And lastly is physical setting, which is the factor that talks about physical structures and objects.
After identifying the list of issues, we group them, the factors, to their proper categories for the stream analysis. It could be seen that we have 9 for organizing arrangement, 3 for social factors, and 6 for technology. We have no issue for their physical setting as there is no mention of any warehouse or any related factor, but only talks about their management and procedures. Now, they are properly grouped, we can identify the relationship of these factors from one another. First of all, we would be talking about what is the symptom, core problem, and fundamental core problem, as this is the point of the stream analysis. To distinguish what is the symptom from the core problem, the symptom has arrows coming in and the problem or core problem has arrows coming out. For the first relationship analysis, let's look at the 3 social factors. First is the logistics secretary and sales agent is doing unassigned work, which is caused by how ideal ordering process procedure is not always followed. Next is they have no production planner and have no employee knowledgeable in forecasting. By having no employee knowledgeable in forecasting, they cannot assign someone to be their production planner. And this factor of having no production planner and no employee knowledgeable in forecasting leads to their inability to deliver additional demand of customer. Next is the factors under technology, which involves any factor that turns input into output. First are wherein the products are turned into usable data. There is an issue of where they miscount the number of products that is used for forecasting, and it is a symptom of having unorganized record, which is a symptom of having their transactions recorded in an MX Excel database only. These factors related to data leads to additional demand cannot be delivered by the company. The second is about turning raw materials into manufacturers. As it has been mentioned, the company outsources the manufacturing of their products. It starts from not acquiring machines to produce their own, which leads to having the inability to produce their own and answer the demand of the customers. In turn, it also leads to not meeting additional customer demands as they don't have backup supply. Lastly is about the factors under organizing arrangement. As they outsource the manufacturing of their product, the product delivery from start to finish takes 3 days, wherein it leads to their inability to meet customer demand. Next is how they have a high price of products compared to competitors, wherein this is a symptom of how they cannot manufacture their own products and have an insufficient number of suppliers. They have an insufficient number of suppliers due to how they rely only upon them and they have the inability to produce their own product. This means that by relying on their Chinese suppliers only and the customer demand is very peak, they cannot meet the demand and compensate for it on their own. Another is all problem that causes them to not deliver the additional demand in turns have no which in turns leads to having no ability to meet the overall total demand. The first obvious factor is wherein additional order takes a 3-day process from their Chinese suppliers and a standard 3-day lead time is needed for additional orders and delivery of product. This means that it takes time to deliver the product from their Chinese suppliers to them, making it hard to meet the demand of the customer on time. Second is having no formal forecasting method. As mentioned, they only use a ceiling forecasting method, and it is a symptom of how they have no employee knowledgeable in forecasting, in turn having inaccurate forecasts that is given to their suppliers which does not include estimates of additional order that leads to having no product to deliver for the additional customer demand and total overall demand. Now that the relationships are identified, we can identify the core problem, main symptom, and fundamental core problem. This could be identified by seeing what factors has the most arrows coming in and coming out. As seen in the figure and how it is previously explained, we can say that the focus of the Little Cup Corporation would be to address their inability to produce their own product as it always turns into not meeting customer demand, as having the ability to produce their own product could compensate for the loss from their suppliers. The fundamental core problem that drives the core problem could be having not acquired machines to produce their own products, as by solving this could alleviate their issues in not meeting customer demand on time and its symptoms and other problems. Now that we have identified the core problem, the symptom, and the fundamental core problem, we can start in thinking of solutions. But in identifying these causes, we could make mistakes that could invalidate the analysis. To avoid this, the causes should be verified by using appropriate tools that are under the industrial engineering and service engineering management fields. For this causal analysis, we decided to use the other tools that could be used other than stream diagnostic chart for causal analysis, as it justifies what is included in the stream diagnostic chart because it collects similar data but in a different method or manner. The first tool that we have used is the systems flowchart, wherein it lists down the essential parts of the process, helping us to fully understand what is missing or what is the gap. In here, we could see the ideal ordering process wherein the customer calls and orders, and then this is received by the sales agent wherein in then is preparing the purchase order, transferred to the inventory and logistic department wherein they receive the purchase order, record purchase order in MS Excel database, and contact the supplier to order. Once the supplier is contacted, the supplier then receives the order, processes the order, and delivers the order, which could take 2 days until 3 days. Then, the inventory and logistics department receives the product. Once the product is received, they list down the transaction details and other requirements in the inventory database, which is MS Excel. And lastly, the delivery of the customer ordered product is done and the customer should sign the acknowledgement receipt as proof that they have received their product on time. The next tool that we use to validate the causes identified in the stream diagnostic chart would be the YY diagram. The YY diagram is a type of analysis that starts from a sequence that answers the reason behind a problem or issue, or in a simple question, what is the trigger? It results in a hierarchical tree structure that could branch out and answers a why in two to how many manners. As identified from the stream diagnostic chart, we have seen that the main symptom is having unmet customer demand, and this is where we would start our YY diagram. The three main possible triggers for this is that the ideal ordering process is not followed, having inaccurate demand forecasts, and additional demand cannot be delivered. These three are then mainly caused, or which are the ends, is by having no employees that handles production planning, no employees specialized in forecasting, no machines for own manufacturing of product, and the supplier is from abroad. It tells us that the supplier from abroad makes the delivery to take time, which leads to delays in meeting the customer orders, and it could not be easily compensated as they don't have the ability to produce their own products. Now, as mentioned, there are delays due to their suppliers, and by having inaccurate demand forecasts, they could increase the effect of this problem because the order they say to the supplier is insufficient, which leads to the unmet demand. And lastly, as they have inaccurate demand forecasts, this is a trigger of having no employee that specializes in forecasting and having no production planner, which leads to their unmet demand eventually. The last tool that we will be using is the cause and effect diagram, or commonly known as the fishbone diagram. This organizes the factor into the main groups wherein it is categorized into man, management, method, and machine. The main problem is similar to the other two is the unmet demand, and it could be answered by the question what is the main cause of the problem based from these categories. First, the machine wherein, as mentioned tremendously, is they have no capability of producing their own product, which leads to having no backup supply and having miscounted products due to unorganized records as they only record transactions in an MS Excel database, leading to an error in forecasting which is used in ordering from the supplier as there is a needed 3-day lead time. It is under the category of machine as they show the lack and misuse of technology. Next category is man, which focuses on human errors and lack of human support. This composes of doing unassigned work, insufficient suppliers, and having no one specializing in forecasting. It causes unmet demand as there could be errors made, making it hard to have a sufficient supply, especially that the company still does not have the proper ratio of suppliers to customer demand. Third category is their methodologies or procedures followed in the company. Looking at this, the methodology is their biggest contributor to having unmet demand, as their ideal ordering procedure is not always followed, leading to inaccurate forecasts wherein they already do not follow a formal forecasting method and only use the ceiling forecasting method. As man is not sufficient enough, they heavily rely on their suppliers abroad. As mentioned, it takes time for the additional demand and actual demand to be delivered, so they don't meet the customer demand on time, leading to an insufficient supply for the customer orders. Lastly is their management of the company. As they follow a ceiling forecasting method, it shows that their forecast could not be relied upon as does not count estimates of additional orders. Lastly, they have a high price of products due to their inability to produce products, and having suppliers abroad has additional costs.
Lastly, for the conclusion, in a case study of Little Cup Corporation, the problem and causal analysis helps the company to identify the deviations of the company and to provide alternate solutions and feasible recommendations to address the problems. These two methods allow the company to have an in-depth analysis on what causes the deviation, where does it happen, when did it start, when does it occur, etc., to think of a fitting strategy on handling and preventing future problems. For the problem analysis, the Kepner-Trego approach, or the is and is not analysis, was used to identify the root cause. There were four dimensions that were used, which are the what, where, when, and extent, to show what could be the problems and what could be not. The analysis helped in constructing a problem statement that states all the necessary information on the cause. The company's inability to supply the demand of their customers was clearly defined as the root cause, and it happened for 7 months from March to October 2018 and was observed in the inventory and logistics department, which caused Little Cup an opportunity loss. For the causal analysis, this section provides detailed information on the effects of the problem to the company and what causes it. The first tool that was utilized was the stream diagnostic chart, as can be seen in the previous slides. This chart shows the core problem of the company, the main symptom, and the fundamental core problems. It was identified that Little Cup's incapability to produce their own products was the core problem. The company's inability to meet the demand of their customers was the main symptom, and the inaccurate forecasting method was the fundamental core problem. IE and SEM tools were also utilized in this causal analysis, like the YY diagram, systems flowchart, and the fishbone diagram. These four tools in the causal analysis pointed out that the main problem of the company is their numbers of unmet demand, which is caused by their inability to produce their own product, poor forecasting of the demands, lack of employee that specializes in forecasting and production planner, and their current system which has a 3-day lead time before the company can deliver the product to their customers. To conclude, the problem and causal analysis do not give a direct solution or solutions to the problems encountered by Little Cup Corporation. However, it can be used as a basis on what type of solutions the company should implement to address these problems.